Welcome to the 9th episode of the Solo Moviegoers Club. For those of you who are new to this, this is a podcast in which me, Sean, my daughter, Kaya, see the same movie within 24 hours of each other, but we each see it alone in a different theater. Me in Michigan, Kaya in Los Angeles, and then we can't talk to anybody about it. We can't read anything about it. And then we come here on this podcast to discuss our thoughts on the movie and then to take in some outside thoughts together. Sometimes the conversation goes to random places, but we try to keep it as movie-centric as possible for the most part. So without any further ado, this week's movie was Anora. Kaya, what did you think?
Well, the first 30 minutes, I was thinking to myself, why did you pick this movie? But honestly, it was the first movie that we saw together that I rated 5 out of 5. It was so good.
We also saw Terrifier 3, which I gave a 5 out of 5, but that's because I am like the audience for that movie. And I love it for what it is. This is the first movie for me that is a 5 out of 5 in the sense that I will watch this movie 20 times. Like this to me is like Pulp Fiction level good, or something like the French New Wave movies like Breathless that I've seen countless times. Like this movie is granted it's fresh. I just saw this yesterday, and so there's some recency bias, but I think this movie's going to have significant staying power. I think it's like a significant artistic achievement.
Yeah, I agree.
And so we've had 2 episodes that have taken a little longer than others to get up. And the reason for that is because we're supposed to do these 2-minute summaries of the movie at the beginning. Because this really isn't about the plot of the movie, but sometimes you have to understand the plot to be able to understand the rest of the conversation, have context for it. But I butcher these summaries. The longest summary I've given was for The Substance, which we saw a month ago. We still haven't posted because I talked for 27 straight minutes. So Kaya, keep me honest here. I'm going to give a 2-minute summary of the movie Anora. I want you to get out your phone, get out a timer. If I go over 2 minutes, we're cutting it off and we're just saying that the movie ends. Okay.
Ready? Go.
Okay, so this movie starts off, there is this girl, Annie. She is an exotic dancer. She is kind of going through her night, and her boss comes and says, we need a dancer who speaks Russian. We know you speak Russian. She says, okay. She meets this kid, like he looks like a child, who is speaking Russian to her. And they end up spending that night together. He invites her to a party. She goes to the party. He asks if she does like outside work and can basically be his girlfriend for a week. And he's going to pay her to do so. They end up spending this week together. They're having a blast. Like they are falling in love. It is a genuine love story at this point. And they end up going to Vegas together on kind of a whim. You can see where this is going. They get married. Well, turns out he is the son of a Russian oligarch. The oligarch's family, or the oligarchs themselves, the kid's family, find out that he got married. And at first it's a rumor. They're not sure. They send their goons over to take the Russian kid, Vanya is his name, and Annie to get their marriage annulled. And they're not having it. Like they don't want to do it. And it ends up happening, like, so Vanya disappears. These goons try to like kind of take control of the situation, physically restrain them. Vanya disappears. There ends up being this wild night. Like a big chunk of the movie is this crazy night where Annie, Toros, the lead thug, I forget the middle thug's name, and Igor, the bottom of the rung thug. These guys all spend, where am I at, 1 minute?
No, you have 15 seconds.
They spend this zany night trying to find this kid Vanya. They can't find this kid Vanya. Eventually, they find him. He's like wasted out at the club where he had originally met Annie. His parents are coming in from Russia. The parents come from Russia. They go to the courthouse. The parents try to force Annie to get annulled. Annie blows up on the parents, becomes this massive exploration of power and class and how we deal in the world with those things. Wow, 2 minutes is tough, but you get the gist of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You also don't want to like give it all away.
Give it all away. Yeah, it's but within that, I will go to, well, first of all, before we get into it, because there's a lot to unpack there, it's really like a zany one night kind of like comedy. And
yeah, it's a rom-com.
It's a rom-com. It's a weird rom-com, but it also gets really deep and really emotional at the end. Mm-hmm. What was your solo movie going experience like?
It was really nice. Like There were only a couple of people in there, but I will say, literally an hour into this movie, I'm sorry, I'm an ageist or something. This old lady is like going by so slow, like taking up so much space like by the screen. And then she like obviously there's assigned seating, but she sits right next to me and is like literally chewing so loud. It was insane. She ate an entire bucket of popcorn like in my ear. Like
She
I've
showed up
never
an
been
hour
this
late.
close to a human. Yes. I was so confused. I was like,
Were there empty
what's the
seats in the
point?
theater, or was it a packed theater? How many people were there?
There were probably like five other people there. It was a huge theater.
What time of
And
day?
she sat right next to me. It was like two.
What was your coffee situation?
I had half of a coffee left. Um, yeah.
Was she enjoying the movie? Was she laughing at the funny parts? Was she engaged, or was she just like there
She chuckled at a
feasting?
couple of funny parts. I feel like she might have spoken Russian. A lot of this movie was in Russian, and she would laugh at like those parts. So I'm not sure, but
The movie was in Russian and Armenian.
yeah.
So you get like multiple layers. So the thugs are Armenian, but they speak Russian. And then the
Uh-huh.
family is obviously Russian. And then Annie, her grandma was Russian, so she speaks Russian. And her Russian gets better over the course of the movie. So there is more and more Russian being spoken and Armenian. And the way they use
Yeah.
those languages is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My experience
Mm-hmm.
was there. Oh, did you have any other solo moviegoers other than the old lady in your audience?
No, no.
Yeah, I had, I think, three other solo moviegoers. I think one lady, two other dudes, mostly groups. There was like a couple
Yeah.
couples, and then some groups. Oh, I will get to some of the banter in the theater after between one of the couples. It was two ladies that were there together, and they had some funny commentary on the movie.
Mhm.
But at the end of the movie, when the movie ended and the credits started, this has a really powerful like end scene
And
and
yeah.
credits drop. Like one of the better I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And so only me and these two ladies stayed in the theater after. But I actually went for a run immediately before this movie and then went right to the theater. And so I took a coffee with me, but my heart rate was so high when the movie started that I ended up like not even be able to drink the coffee because I was just
Yeah.
like heart pounding out of my chest. But it yeah, like I went to the movie at 12:15 on a Friday,
Hmm.
which is like, pretty common for me, and it was not as packed as Terrifier, which was like packed for a middle of the
Hmm.
day on a weekday, but there were quite a few people there. It was maybe like a quarter full theater, and
That's yeah.
which is good
That's a
for
lot.
a
Uh-huh.
weekday matinee. That's really, really good. I know there's been so much talk over the past few years, especially since COVID, about the theaters dying, and I just don't see that happening. I think theaters are
I think they're
packed.
back.
I think they're back
I
in a big
actually had
way.
a conversation with someone about this like 2 days ago, and they were just like, what is there to stream right now? Like, I swear there's nothing to watch now. I feel like it's flipping back to theaters being the thing. And I agree.
Well, we also, this is kind of funny, and I feel bad. I do owe the last movie that we saw, which we haven't posted yet, which we need to, especially because the distributor was so kind to give us a link because I wasn't able to make it to the theater to see it in time.
Hmm.
We saw Let's Start a Cult, and I had trouble. It was really weird. I didn't see that in a theater. I watched it at home, and just like stuff was interrupting me. And
Hmm.
then I had to like take a break to put Kai's little brother to bed at one point during the movie. And I had trouble recalling some of the things that happened and like
Hmm.
the order that they happened in. But when you see a movie in a theater, you're so immersed in the experience. And I think that's what people want. I think people want to get off of coming from a dude who made two streaming movies over the past year. It's funny for me to be saying this, but I think people want to get away from streaming sometimes. I think streaming can be great, but I think people love going to the theater, being able to not look at their phone, being able to not have people calling them, emailing them, talking to them, and
Hmm.
just focused on the story. I think it's yeah, I think it is back and kind of better than ever.
Hmm. I think like I seriously have not watched a movie at home that I haven't gone on my phone during in like 10 years. Like obviously, but
It's
I
hard.
just
We're
like
addicted to our phones. You get that weird feeling like you just need to look at your phone. What if you're missing something and you don't have that when you're at the theater?
yeah.
We talked about this
Yeah.
all day. But anyways, from the very beginning of this movie, like With I can see why you were wondering why I wanted you to see this movie within
Because
the
I
first
didn't
30
read.
minutes.
If you choose a movie, I'm not going to read anything about it. I won't like look anything up about it. I just saw that it was a rom-com. That's all.
The first 30 minutes is like strip clubs and sex scenes, basically.
Yeah.
But
But it was really like done well. Like it was choreographed well and not like I don't know,
it's not
cheesy or
pervy.
weird. It's
It's
yeah.
it's not like, I guess the correct term for it would be, it's not like overly male gazy, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's a part of the storytelling. It's the world, but they're not using the fact that there is nudity, etc., to like tantalize the audience. It's just a part of that world. They're framing it as this is the world these characters live in. This is what's happening. The way that the camera moves, I thought was really cool. I thought the way that
Yeah.
club looked was incredible. The lighting was incredible, and the way, especially in the beginning, that the camera moved through the club, you could feel Annie's world was a world that just never stops moving. It's also not chaotic. There's like a fluidity to it, and it seems like at the beginning of the movie she's fully in control of what's happening. But then you see when she leaves the club and she goes home on the subway, compared to like the lush, like even like the sounds of the club were like good music and nice lighting, and then she gets out of there and it's this harsh shrill shriek of the subway or the whatever train she's on, and you go to her house and everything's very drab and everything's very like the colors are very muted, and you can see that in a lot of ways, even though she has a job that I think in the movie gets into this, but a job that some people look down upon, that's the highlight of her life. Like
Yeah.
that's the place where she feels warmth and she feels at home. And then I also noticed after she meets Vanya and she goes to his house, like the golden light pouring into Vanya's house, and like how beautiful everything looks and how warm everything looks in contrast to the cold world that she's living in. They really, like, older movies used to do this really well, where there was so much symbolism and meaning
Yeah.
that was pulled from the camera movement and the lighting, and this did that. This was like a very classical film, but set in a modern context, and I really loved that about it.
Yeah, for sure.
What were you surprised by? Like, when did you start to see in the movie, like, oh, okay, this is why you wanted me to see it?
I kind of, when I first started watching it, I felt like, oh, I kind of know where this is going. And then there were parts of it, like after he asked her to stay for like the week and that he would pay her, I knew that there would be something a little bit deeper behind it, and it wouldn't just be like another one of these movies.
Yeah, and it did, like, the two of them spending their week together captured the feeling of falling in love really, really well. Like,
Okay, that whole like week sort of interlude, the way that that was shot felt like a coming of age John Green movie. Like that's what I was thinking the whole time. It felt like a totally different thing.
because it was so unafraid to be earnest. Like, there was not a hint of irony in any of it. It was like it just leaned into what it was, and like had enough courage and self-confidence to just say, like, we are going to make a super earnest love story about these two people from these very different backgrounds falling in love. And even to the point, after they get married, they're in Vegas, and they're in, I forget what it's called, in downtown Vegas. There's that like light show experience that's above the street, where it's like an LED screen that's above, and after they get married, they're like dancing in that area, and you look up and there's literal fireworks above them. Like that is how their relationship is blossoming, and it's really fun to watch it. And what's funny is that Vanya actually comments early on that Annie's 23, but she seems older.
Yeah.
And he's 21 and he is a child. And,
Yeah.
and there's elements of it where he's sort of charming and you can kind of see like why she's into him. And then there's moments where it's really frustrating because he's like a 13-year-old. And
No, and okay, one of the plot points that I thought was going to happen was him being underage, and that's why his parents weren't okay with it. That's what I was thinking the whole time. Like he's like 17, but no, like
Yeah, really, they weren't okay with it just because, well, they kept saying she was a prostitute, but
Uh-huh.
they weren't, she was some form of sex worker, I guess, and they weren't okay with
Hmm.
that because they supposedly are above that. And here's where I think the movie gets really fascinating is the subtext and the other themes that are there. Like, this is a movie where every scene is about power. Like in the
Hmm.
beginning, Annie is in power in that club. Like you can even see she has power over the other girls. Like they don't like
Yeah.
her because
And
she
her
was like,
boss.
and her boss. She is the power broker at the beginning of the movie until she enters Vanya's world, where it still seems like she's in control for a bit until
Hmm.
his parents get involved.
Yeah.
And then the first moment that you realize that you expect Vanya to be, you like him, but you're always kind of
Hmm.
waiting for like, when is this like spoiled little rich kid gonna like show his true colors? And he does quickly when
Hmm.
he like tries to put up a fight for a minute with his dad's thugs who come over, until he realizes his parents are on the way from Russia on a jet. And then he just
Hmm.
pieces out and leaves Annie in the dust
Yeah.
and leaves her to deal with all these guys. And you kind of think, I kept waiting for him to come back. I was like, oh, he's going to smash the car through, like, because we saw that they have all these nice cars that he's not allowed to
I
drive.
thought that's what was gonna happen too.
And instead, he leaves her to fend for herself. And
Hmm.
these dudes are so unprepared to deal with her. I thought that was
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Uh-huh.
hilarious.
It
One
was
of my
so
favorite.
funny.
It was so funny. People were laughing out loud in the theater. I was
Hmm.
laughing. People were actually howling. One of those two ladies that was
Yeah.
there together, the lady was howling during the movie. And
Hmm.
I love in movies when people do crime poorly. It's just like
Hmm.
one
Me
of my
too.
favorite things.
Yeah.
And these guys were so bad at it. They also weren't bad people, which is what made it
No,
so
they were just
interesting.
scared too.
They were
They were
scared,
just
and that
scared of the
was,
family.
you get to see is like they are in power over her because they're like three big dudes with this like woman alone in this place, and but she has the power because she's able to scream, and they're scared that she's going to scream, but they're all just
Hmm.
scared of the family who's going to come into town and what's going to happen. Like this main dude, what's his name? Yoros?
Yeah.
Toros.
Toros.
Toros. So
Yeah.
the two guys, the two other thugs, the one guy's name I keep forgetting is Toros' brother, but him and Igor are there waiting for Toros to get there. So
Garnick.
Toros could Garnick to take care of the situation. And they can't deal with Annie. So Toros is on the phone on speaker listening to Annie like smash lamps, and they're trying to tie her up, and she's
He's
screaming,
like,
and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like it's
"Are
and
you
he left.
killing her? Did you kill
Yeah.
her?" Like it was just so funny.
And what's so funny is the chaos. It's so much more chaotic because you as the audience are like just wondering, you're knowing what Toros is hearing and not
Uh-huh.
seeing, but what you're
Yeah.
seeing is they can't handle her. Like she's just like kind of
Uh-huh.
walking all over them because they also don't want to hurt her. Because
Hmm.
they're not like sociopaths. They're guys who are in a bad situation just like she's in a bad
Hmm.
situation. Everyone's in a bad situation because these parents that are coming truly hold power over all of them. And like to the point where Toros, who's like the big boss of the thugs, he left his grandchild's baptism to
Hmm.
go deal with this problem. And you can tell
Yeah.
he's been cleaning up Vanya's crap since he was like 6 years old, he says.
Yeah.
And so that a dog just entered a part of our house that he's not allowed to be in. I don't know what's happening. Chaos is happening outside of the podcast.
Always.
But anyways, it's one of the more chaotic scenes ever.
It was
Like, it's
so good.
and it goes on for a long time. It is a
I was
long,
just going to
chaotic
say it
scene.
lingered, but it didn't feel like it.
No, it's one of those things where it's like South Park has a joke about this, where like a joke is funny and then it's not funny anymore, and then it gets funny again, and then it's not funny,
Yeah.
and then it's really funny. This did
Hmm.
that. It like again, this movie is just brimming with confidence in that it let things linger where they needed to linger and didn't ever cut away, and it's so funny. So, anyways, they eventually tell Annie that they'll give her $10,000 if she annuls this marriage. And you don't really know. You can't tell. Her look is kind of inscrutable. You don't know if she's really considering it or if she's just using that as an out. Because she says, well, I want to talk to Vanya first.
Yeah.
And they say, okay. So that's where the movie really launches into these four go on this crazy journey overnight looking for Vanya, going to everywhere where they think he could have been. They're always on his trail. everything kind of goes wrong at every step of the way. Like they get their car towed, and it's all just like showing like the I guess how out of control they are. Meaning not out of control like in a like out of control, but like they have no control over their lives. None of these people do.
Yeah.
They're all pawns. And eventually I'll skip over all the detail of what happens, but the parents show up. Vanya just completely leaves Annie to fend for herself. Annie stands up to Vanya's mom. She tries to be really nice. She's like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I'm so happy to be a part of your family. I'm so honored. And Vanya's mom's like, you're never going to be a part of this family. Like, who do you think you are?
And she makes fun of her Russian.
She makes fun of her Russian.
Yeah.
She's like, you can tell from the minute she walks out, she's awful. And it eventually there's a really nice moment actually outside of the plane where it's just Igor, the bottom level thug, and Annie outside of the jet, and Vanya's mom comes out because everybody else is on, and she's like, you are getting on this plane, you are going to Vegas. They try to annul the marriage in New York. They can't because they got married in Vegas, so they have to annul it in Vegas. You're getting on this plane and you're going to annul the marriage. And Annie's like, no, I'm not. We are married. I'm not getting an annulment. I'm going to divorce him and I'm going to take my half. And Vanya's mom says, if you do that, if you have anything, which I doubt you do, we will take everything from you. You will lose everything. You will lose your house if you have one. You will lose your car if you have one. Your family will lose everything if they have anything. Not that I think they do. And Annie stands up to her in that moment. It's pretty cool. Igor has like a little smirk on his face. Igor's really interesting. Igor through the whole movie.
I wanted to talk about that. Yeah, I think he was such a lovable character, especially because he's like a scary looking dude thug, but like the whole time he only has good intentions. Like there was a part where one of the guys got like a black eye and he's in so much pain, so he's like, stop here. Like, so he goes into his grandma's house and gets him like pain medicine, or he whips out a scarf because it's so cold and they're walking and he gives it to Annie.
Well,
and
the
just,
guy
like,
had
the
a black
whole
eye
time-
because Annie broke his nose.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, but Igor keeps trying to be nice to Annie, but she won't let him live down that he's the one that tied her up when she was trying to get away, which he did. He tied her up with a telephone cord. But he was trying to be really like gentle about it. Yeah. Even though he was doing this horrible thing, he didn't want to do it, which is that conflict is so interesting. But so Igor, there's the moment where it's the first time that Toros is actually in the house. I don't know if you noticed this, but he's talking to them and Annie's out of focus. And the focus is on Igor the whole time. It's like this 2-shot and the focus is on Igor, and you just see him like kind of reeling and sad and thinking about what's happening as they're telling this girl that she needs to get her marriage annulled, and she's saying she doesn't want to, that she's in love. And it's really powerful, like that framing even. But anyways, flash forward to they're on the tarmac and Annie stands up to Vanya's mom and Igor gives this little smirk, and then 2 seconds later they're on the plane. You don't really know what happened. Why did Annie get on the plane? And it's pretty upsetting because you're really mad because you think what I thought was going to happen is that she was going to realize that you can't take anything from people who have nothing. And that's what the powerful don't realize, is that we're already powerless. What are you going to do to me? But instead, I think she realized in the moment that the $10,000 is all she's going to get out of this. Like, Vanya is a piece of garbage and she doesn't want to be with him anyway. And they get on the plane. She gets several turns. Like, it's really cool how many turns they give Annie to tell these people off, both to tell Vanya off. And Vanya's dad is loving it, by the way. This guy hates his kid, hates his wife. He just seems so annoyed. He's laughing. He's annoyed and miserable. Good. And they end up, Annie signs it, and it's like kind of dramatic in the courthouse office. But yeah, every time Annie stands up to them, Vanya's dad laughs a lot. Igor actually stands up at one time and says that Vanya should apologize. And so those two get to kind of stand on their own ground. But what you realize in that moment, and then you realize even more later, is that because they send off, this whole crew sends Igor and Annie to go travel coach together. Like they've just been on this private jet, and all these people get back on this private jet. They put Annie and Igor and coach together. Igor's in the middle seat. There's a crying baby behind them. It's like the worst flight ever. But they're there, and they're the only two decent people in this whole equation. And she's gonna go get her money the next morning, and then you know that like even though Vanya's family has all this money and has all this power, these people are miserable. They're terrible people, and they're just going to be stuck in their. They're going to go back to Russia and be stuck in their cycle of misery for the rest of their lives. And you realize in that moment that Vanya knew all along he only had 1 week left to stay in America because he has to go work for his dad's company. And so this whole marriage, all of this, he just did it because he could play around and have fun for a week. And you realize like the true depths of his narcissism and depravity, I guess. But you realize in that moment, like at least I did when they're on the plane together, I'm like, oh, well, they have each other who are being kind to one another, even though they're kind of prickly about it. Like Annie is the most New York character ever. She's just
I was going to say, do you think that's her real voice or accent? It was incredible.
I don't know. And that's the other thing. One comment I want to make is that like this movie doesn't have movie stars. And although I think Annie will be a movie star after this, but like what is a movie star now? Are there movie stars anymore? Like think of the movies that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
Do movies need movie stars? I mean, I guess The Substance, right, has Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley to an extent.
I mean, there are new like stars and like people that you want to see in movies, I would say. But
yeah, but it's not like he used to.
I don't think you need it.
This movie, with not a huge budget movie, no movie stars in it, is already it just got wide release this week. It was been a smaller release. It's already in the top 100 movies of the year.
I did see that on Instagram. I was getting ads for it, and the reviews were crazy. The ratings were really high.
I haven't looked at any, but I know they are. But yeah, and so then so they get the money. Annie and Igor get the money, and they get to stay. Toros gives them one more night to stay in Vanya's parents' house. Vanya's been playing like this house is his house the whole time, by the way, and you find out it's not. The bedroom he said was his bedroom, his parents' bedroom.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say like that room you're staying in, like that's his parents' room. His room has like all the little cars and trains and stuff in it down the hall.
Yeah,
it's like a total little kid's room.
Yeah, he's just this out of control little kid, and you realize the things that you thought were like charming and childlike about him aren't. He's just a narcissistic child. But so they get to stay in his house overnight, and they give each other a really hard time. It's like their dynamic is hilarious. I guess that's why I brought up that she's such like a hardcore New Yorker, because they're like their way of bonding is just to give each other a hard time. And you see this, and you see this kind of mutual respect, and it's so quiet for the first time in the movie. The movie's really quiet, and the two of them, Igor and Annie, are alone in the house just watching TV, and they have each other to be with while these other people are just going to be daggers at each other's throats. And it's a really nice moment. So he takes her home the next morning, and she's about to get out of the car. And one of the things that happened, there was like a kind of dramatic moment where the thugs took Annie's engagement ring, this 4-carat diamond, and Igor gives it to her at the end as he's about to drop her off, because he kept it to give to her, because that's like no one was going to notice that this thing was missing, because there's just like so much extravagant wealth everywhere. And she doesn't know how else to react, and that's kind of interesting at the moment. So like she just like crawls over onto him and just starts like they start having sex, and that's her like I don't
it's
know
her, like,
if
thank you.
I didn't know if it was her thank you or if it was a callback to the beginning of the movie where that was her tool of power that she had.
Yeah.
And it could have been both. Because then he like starts kissing her, and like he tries to be like more intimate and starts kissing her, and she doesn't want it. She like pushes him away, but then she starts crying, and it's like it is really sweet but really sad,
Mm-hmm.
and then the movie just ends.
Yeah.
It's just quiet. There's no music. The
Uh-huh.
credits just roll, and she's just like sobbing on his chest. And I don't know. I mean, it was interesting because I guess she's now got this money. She's now got this ring that she can sell. Like, she's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think happens? Do you think this be the real love story? Is that this kicks off the Igor Annie love story? Do you think
I
she
would
goes
like
out
it to
separate?
be. I would like it to be, but I just don't know. I don't think so. I think like this her world in the only way that she knows kind of how to be.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I don't know. Do you
She's
think
just
she
like
goes
I
back to
feel
that
like she
club?
doesn't yeah, because I feel like especially with the experience she just had, she probably has zero trust for anyone and for a relationship, so there's no way that they would end
Yeah.
up together. Maybe in my head I would love that because I love a rom-com, but I don't know.
So I wrote down exactly what these ladies said. So the lady that was howling throughout the movie, the two ladies that were there alone, I don't know how they're like middle-aged women, and the one lady, so they're talking about how they thought Igor was hot. And then the one lady
Hmm.
says, "Put a
He
beanie
was
on
the whole
that."
time. I thought that. I literally. What did you just say?
Continue. Continue. I'll tell you. Continue what you were going to
No,
say,
I
and then
was
I'll
just
tell you what she
thinking.
said.
No, like the second he came on screen, I was thinking like that he was really good looking, that there would be something there.
And there was. You were right.
That's all.
Um, so this lady, they're
Yeah.
just they're all talking to, or they're both talking about how hot he is, and then the one lady says, "Put a beanie on that bald head, and I'm DTF." I read a lot of fantasy books, so when he was tying her up, I was like, "Get."
Wow.
I was, and at the
Wow.
only person in the theater left with them, and I see them turn around and notice, and I couldn't leave the theater. I just had to let them leave. I didn't want to see them in the hallway because they stopped talking once they realized they
And they
weren't
said
alone
it
and they had
that
just said
loud.
that.
Oh my God.
That loud.
Wait, were they together or were they strangers?
They were together.
Okay. So silly.
It was hilarious. It made me really happy. I was trying really hard not to laugh because I didn't want to embarrass them. That's why I didn't want to see them in the hallway because I knew if I saw them, I would
Yeah.
start laughing.
Yeah.
It actually gave me an idea though. So I want to start interviewing people in the theaters after we see the movies and use that as part of our podcast. No?
Uh, we can, but what?
Just walking up to other solo moviegoers and asking them what they think and what they feel.
What if there isn't a solo moviegoer?
Then we don't.
Okay.
We don't have to. It was just an idea.
What?
I
I
want to get into these
mean,
people's heads, man on the street style.
God. I mean, I would do it. We need the microphones though. We need like a little camera crew.
We can do it. I can show you how. Um,
Okay.
so if you had to be any character, who would you be?
You go first. I don't
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
No, you don't, because I
I
don't
think I
even know
do.
where I'm going.
I'm gonna write down right now where I think you're going. Okay, I'm gonna put this on my phone, and I'm not going to touch my phone, and it's going to be proof that I know where you're going. Hold up.
I don't know where I'm going though, so like there's a couple of different routes.
Okay, so even though what happens to her is pretty horrible, I'm gonna go Annie because I think that she will come out of this more resilient and stronger than ever. And I think, you have those weeks in your life that have these moments that define you. And this was it for her. And I think
Hmm.
that she's going to come out of it and live a life that she lives on her own terms, which is all
I
you
was
can ask
gonna
for.
say her too.
Man, I was
What
wrong.
did you think? What did you think? Oh.
Igor. I
Like
thought you were
I
going
could
Igor.
definitely see that too, but then if you think about it at the end of the day, like it was only like a couple of weeks in her life. She got money out of it. She had a fun experience. She has so much like power over that club. She'll get her job back. Like, I think, yeah, whatever.
Um, what about Vanya? Like,
I
here's
would
what's
not.
yeah. Here's the thing, though, is that like yes, he's in a horribly toxic family, but this isn't like he's going to go do this again and again and again. Like people are just his playthings. And
Yeah.
what do you think? Do you think people who have that much power or that much wealth and can just go through life making huge mistakes and ruining other people's lives, do you think that is do you think it's possible to live a fulfilling life the way that he lives his life? Or do you think he'll like have everything but nothing will mean anything to him and he'll be miserable?
I mean, maybe this is like a bad example, but like if you think about the kids whose parents force them to be a doctor or a lawyer, like they will never be fully satisfied with their life. And like they're always going to be chasing something. They're always going to be caught in trouble and like not in full control of what's going on or the trajectory of their life. So I feel like he's just not going to be happy.
His parents are just going to bully him around and he's
Yeah.
going to act out to try
Yeah.
to yeah yeah. And I think too that there's a thing too that it's really I think it's easy to think sometimes or to want to think that people who have extreme wealth aren't happy because it makes it easier to process that most people don't have that and will never have that. But like the
Yeah.
reality is I know people who have extreme wealth who are very good people who are super super happy, and I know people with extreme wealth who are absolutely miserable. And I don't think it has anything to do. I think that if
Yeah.
you're starving or if you're in poverty, I think it's very hard to be happy because it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like there are things you need that you don't have, and that makes it really difficult to be happy because your life is hard. But I think that if you're at like a subsistence level or higher, I
Mhm.
think you're either a miserable or happy person around miserable or happy people, or you're not. And I think Vanya's family is miserable. I think that Igor and Annie are going to be okay. Like, I
Yeah.
think that they will go on no matter what they do to live fulfilling lives. And I also think that's an interesting thing of like Vanya's family is so against Annie because of what her work is, but she's happy and confident and like she's cool with
Hmm.
what she does. She doesn't have a problem with it. They ask her at one point, one of her clients at one point asks her, "Does your family know you work here?" And she goes, "Yeah." "Does your family know you are here?"
Hmm.
And I thought that was really funny. But like Vanya's family can look down on what she does, but she doesn't have a problem with what she does. And I think that she can go on and continue doing that, whereas Vanya and his family are going to continue to have these judgmental beliefs and to think a certain way, to think they're above people when the reality is like they're the most garbage people that they're coming into contact with. Everybody around them is more honorable than them.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought this did it. I thought in that, but yeah, but still the power elements. Even if here's what's interesting, even if Vanya's family didn't suck, if they were good people, the
Hmm.
power dynamic wouldn't have been any different. And I thought the best moment where you see this, and that's what's really interesting, is like this wasn't a film about like overtly about the nature of power and the nature of inequality, but it told that story so well. Like the best
Hmm.
example to me is when they get to Vegas and there's like the concierge dude that meets them in the lobby, and he's like, Mr. Whatever his last name is. "I'm so sorry. Your room isn't quite ready yet, but we kicked the people out. There's someone in. We kicked them out. The maids are getting it ready." And he fake blows up on the guy. And he's like, "You
Hmm.
expect me to wait here? I can't wait here." And you know he's joking because he's been like seemingly good dude up to this point. So you think he's joking. But even if he's joking, that's not a joke for that guy. For
Yeah, he
that
was
guy
so
in that
terrified.
situation, he's terrified, and the fear is real, which is an even more powerful demonstration of Vanya's power because of his parents' money than if he were to truly like be being a jerk to this guy. I mean, he was just, but in his like playful way. So then, anyway, the
Yeah.
minute he walks away, that guy then has to like dump on the guy that's below him, And so
Yeah.
he says something to the bellhop, and this movie does that constantly, where it's like everybody's
Yeah.
dumping on the person who's one rung of power below them.
And like there was a part where his Vanya's parents came in and they were introduced at the airport, and Vanya was like kissing up to his mom, like, "Oh my God, is that bag from like a new collection?" Like blah blah blah. Like, and we've never seen Vanya act like that. He's always been like pretty above everyone. So to see like all the different power structures was really interesting.
Yeah, and even the mom was the power broker.
Yeah, for sure.
It was, and the dad loved to see her get put in her place because no one else would do it, including him.
Yeah.
Should we look at some reviews? I feel like there's almost no point. Rotten Tomatoes is going to love this movie.
Yeah. I'm curious though, just to see.
By the way, Anora is Annie's real name. She just goes by Annie because she prefers it. She doesn't like Anora. They never explain why, but oh, actually, they kind of do explain why.
They
It's
kind of
because
do
because
with Igor.
yeah, Igor wants to know what her name means. He talks about how his name means warrior, and she says in America names don't have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
4.2 on Letterbox. That's very high.
That's real. Like nothing beats what is it? 3.5. Everything on Letterbox is a 3.5.
It's yeah.
No part of the audience believes in the reality of their love, and yet it is nonetheless wonderful to see them fool themselves so ecstatically. Anora isn't a fairy tale that plays by the rules of Prince Charmings and happy endings. Instead, it thankfully explores something more real, people just trying to get through the day with some sense of hope and human connection. Baker shoots and choreographs like a punk Cassavetes, toying with dynamics, colors, and textures while always creating chunky knots of overlapping dialogue in a bid to heighten tensions to breaking point and beyond. Yeah, the overlapping dialogue is incredible. Like there's a moment in the like seriously 10-minute long scene where they're trying to like capture Annie, where
So
who is
good.
they're on the phone and she's in the background yelling, and it's just like it's just a wide shot, and you see for the longest time these guys trying to deal with her, and she's in the background just creating absolute chaos. I love moments like that in movies. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. Oh wow, this movie is actually the main screen on Letterboxd right now. If I go to
Yeah.
Letterboxd, that's just what shows
These are
up.
hilarious. A Cinderella Story for Girls on SSRIS or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Wait, what's SSRIS? I saw SSRIs like
Yes, yes. SSRIs.
yeah,
I said S though. Double S.
serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Mm-hmm. Great poster.
If you don't like this movie, you must be a very boring person.
Sean Baker does for sex workers what Martin Scorsese did for gangsters. This is this guy's like third movie at least, maybe fourth that he's been in this world. It's really weird. Sean Baker's an interesting filmmaker. A lot of times, I think a lot of filmmakers like their first movie is the one that it like really puts them on the map. Like you think of like Ari Aster with Hereditary, and then even like Damien Chazelle with Whiplash. That was his second movie, but it was his 1st bigger movie. Sean Baker was making movies for like 10 or 12 years until he made this movie Tangerine, which follows sex workers in LA that he shot on an iPhone. And that movie like blew up. And then he made Red Rocket, and then he made this. But yeah, he is definitely doing like the Scorsese thing, but for this work. Probably the best theater going experience I've had since Parasite. Home invasion scene might be the
Yeah, a lot of
funniest
people are saying to catch it in a packed theater.
scene of the year. The home invasion scene is the funniest scene of the year. It's so funny. Someone says hundreds of beavers. This hundreds of beavers we've got to see. I keep hearing about this movie. Someone says not perfect but great. What does that mean? How is it not perfect but it's great? Come on.
What
think-
is perfect?
Nothing's perfect. That's just somebody being a hater. I think this has
Yeah.
the best ending to a film and the best slow love story I've ever seen on screen. One of them ones where during the film I was slightly underwhelmed at points, but as I sat with it, I realized that was the point, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Wow, people are so funny on Letterboxd.
Give me some funny ones.
I can almost guarantee you Anora wears Britney Spears fantasy. That's true. I can see it.
Someone else says that's why you shouldn't trust twinks.
Yeah. I actually did. I said something about that in my review.
Really? What's your review? Read us
Yeah.
your review.
This is embarrassing.
I want to hear it.
I, s- I said never date a twink whose mom is in love with him. It's true.
Wow. You sound like you're speaking from personal experience.
I am. Have you ever?
I
Have you
I
ever?
won't name
Have you?
names.
Have you ever like? There are just certain mothers who are like in love with their son and like won't let anyone go near them. It's kind of a
It's
crazy
a
thing.
thing.
It's
So I'm gonna horribly embarrass Kaya and tell an amazing story one time. One time Kaya was on a date ice skating, and I don't know why, but our whole family decided to like crash this date and go to they were ice skating in downtown Detroit where there's like the big tree and it's like Detroit's version of Rockefeller Center. And we roll up and we see Kaya with this kid. He was so bad at ice skating. It was unbelievable. And it's like this is before people used the term ick, but there's always been like if you watch somebody do something poorly or like see somebody fall, you know right in that moment if you actually like them or not, because if you don't, it's
yeah.
impossible to even look them in the eye. And we roll up and Kaya is just looks so miserable. She's holding his hand, but not like to be sweet, but to keep him up because he sucks so bad. That will forever. I'm not going to use his name, but that forever will be like anytime Kai is going on a date with somebody or does something like I can tell it's like not going to continue. I'm like, oh, is it like blank when you guys were ice skating? Because it's like the best example ever.
I remember you guys would always tell me growing up, like, the ultimate test on if you know if you can, like, be with someone or not is if they fall in front of you. And if you get grossed out, then, like, it's never gonna happen. And, like, that moment, like, I knew. It just.
It's so funny. I think the moment when I knew that I was going to stay with Kaya's mom was when I saw her slip on the ice. It was unbelievable. She slipped. Her whole body was off the ground, maybe like 3 or 4 feet, and she landed directly on her back and then just got up like nothing happened. And I didn't get the ick. And
That's so good.
That's powerful. But yeah, oh my God,
Yeah.
the look on your face. I can see it right now.
I didn't know you guys could see me.
It was so good.
Ew.
That's fun. Man, I wasn't
He's like
expecting
the perfect example of twink. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy.
I wasn't expecting your review to go there, and I wasn't expecting our podcast to go to that. But I think everybody out there knows exactly what we're talking about. When you see somebody suck at something or fall, that's right there. If you're grossed out by it, just leave. Just end the relationship there. There's no need for any sort of resolution. Just shake their hand and say, it's been really nice to know you. This isn't going to work, and get out.
Like, you can't get past that.
No,
You can't.
it's impossible.
Yeah, that's my review, though. That's my
That's good.
advice, too.
We've got David Ehrlich, who's like a major reviewer. I feel like he's come up on Letterboxd before, but he's got a pretty lengthy review that has 3,479 likes. Oh yeah, this review continues on IndieWire.
Oh, whoa.
So I think it's just his IndieWire review that he posted here.
Letterboxd famous.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Make that as a t-shirt. You should seriously, let's make that as a t-shirt for some of our merch and put on our website,
I'll wear it.
solomoviegoersclub.com. Buy our stuff. I'll wear a Letterboxd famous shirt. I'm I'm Letterboxd infamous. This site hates my movies.
I know.
I'm gonna wear a site that says I get trashed on Letterboxd once a year. Mm-hmm. Does Letterboxd like Crockett?
I think it's probably average rating.
I mean, we looked.
I don't know.
We looked like right after it came
But
out.
we
But it was
looked-
too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are digging this. That's future Academy Award winner Mikey Madison to you. Definitely. I think that's going to be tough. Who's going to beat her for Best Actress?
Do we know who's in the running?
It's not. It won't be announced until early next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she did a really great job.
Everybody did. That's what I love. Like when
Yeah.
I say like I don't think we need movie stars anymore. I think
No.
like this movie was just great actors, like great performers, and by the time you're pulled into that world, like it was better that I was watching Annie and Igor and Vanya than if I would have been watching a bunch of actors. Like I get like Mikey Madison who plays Annie, she's in the show called Better Things that people love that I never watched. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it was years ago. I think she was a kid. But I was really happy that
I didn't know that.
these were those characters to me. Like that's who these people are, and that helped me get absorbed into the movie versus being distracted by. But it works both ways. Like in The Substance, for instance, the Demi Moore's persona, who she is, worked really well and was additive to the character.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas like try to make like I don't know if like Paul Giamatti would have been Toro, so I've been like, why is Paul Giamatti pretending to be this
Yeah.
Armenian thug?
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about, the clothes in this movie were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, like from the kids that Vanya hung out with to Vanya and Annie to the even like the henchmen were perfectly dressed, like everything.
Yeah. Wardrobe was really cool.
Everything
I
was
loved
good.
it.
They
It
just
was so good.
they did not misfire at all on this movie.
I was actually just telling my friend that Vanya reminds, and acts like a boy you would meet in a model casting line, like to a T, like perfect. Even the way he dressed, like his mannerisms, it was just so good.
Russian Timothy Chalamet.
Yes, I was also going to say like I don't know if like Timothy Chalamet would have been a good addition to this, even though
No.
he kind of fits that role like perfectly. Like it's so him.
Yeah, but no, better because it was this guy who was just awesome. Like when like he was
Yeah.
being a little kid and like cackling in bed, like I just believed this guy was that person. And then when he turns at the end, I believed that just as much. It was just so good and
Yeah.
so believable. It didn't feel like actors playing characters. They were so absorbed in their roles. It's awesome.
Yeah, like I genuinely feel like he might just be like that in real life because it was so well done.
Yeah, I mean that's a sign of such a good performance. So you
Yeah.
talked about the movie. You broke a rule.
I talked about it to my friend because I wanted her to watch it.
Yeah, I did tell because I
She
had
didn't
told a
see it.
friend. I had told a friend that we were seeing it, and then after I saw it, I just texted him and said it's great, all caps.
Yeah. I
Because
didn't break any rules.
I said that we've been seeing lots of good, but we haven't necessarily seen any like true great.
Yeah, for sure. This was great.
So what's next? I know we're super excited about Nosferatu.
I'm so excited. So excited. Even though I hate the original,
Yeah,
I
that's what
like
I
the
don't
story.
get.
I don't like the original.
Yeah, I
I just like the
do.
storyline.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. Let us know what you're digging about this. Let us know what you're not. We're open to feedback. We want to make this entertaining. We want you guys to join our solo moviegoers club.
Our cult.
Yes, our
We
cult.
started a cult.
We did start a cult. Yeah, we started a cult last week. So if you'd like to join our
Yeah.
cult, let us know. We're very welcoming. We promise not to be too creepy right up until the point where we may or may not drink a beverage that's tainted with something that may or may not kill all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
yeah, we're gonna keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for joining us. We will see you guys again next week with some movie. What movie? I don't know. All right, peace.
Swag money YOLO.
Oh my god. All right, bye.
Bye.